Hello everyone, how's it going, and welcome to today's Wild Rift guide. In today's guide, we're going to be taking a look at the Heart of Freljord Braum. Braum is a tank support. He's your typical support that likes to use all of his crowd control to stun the enemies and use his shield to block incoming abilities and combos. If your team picks a bunch of squishy champions, then this is the perfect time to pick Braum so you can be that frontline tank for your team. Moving on to the build with Braum, as mentioned already, Braum is a tank support, so you want to build items that give you health, armor, and magic resist, so you can be that frontline tank for your team. First item we have is Dead Man's Plate, just a really good cheap item overall. Gives you maximum health, gives you armor, gives you a little bit of movement speed as well that can help with Braum when you're trying to walk up, trying to use your auto attacks and use your passive, use your first ability to try and crowd control the enemies. You have the momentum passive as well, which grants you even more movement speed. And then you have crushing blows as well that just allows you to deal that little bit of extra damage. Zeke's Convergence is a really nice support item. Armor, magic resist, maximum mana, which is quite nice, and also ability haste. But the main reason is for the passives. You have the Harbinger passive, which casting your ultimate surrounds you with a blizzard and enhances a nearby ally's attacks for 10 seconds. And you also get to slow the enemies as well. So it allows your team to deal more damage and allows you to slow as well when you use your ultimate. So you can use your other abilities to crowd control and help your team out. For the boots, plated steel caps is normally the best option, especially because you run Hunter Titan as a rune, so you have tenacity from that. But if there is a lot, and I mean a lot of crowd control, you can go for Mercury Treads instead. And for the boots upgrade, most of the time you want to go for Redemption. Braum's super tanky anyway, so you don't need to go for boots upgrades. Like Stone Plate, for example, and to be honest, nothing else really helps you. You can go for Shadows. Shadows can be quite a good one to go for. Most of the time, Redemption is quite good, so you can keep healing your team, and you can keep them healthy during team fights. Protector's Vow, another really great item for Braum. Maximum health, armor, ability haste, and the Protector passive as well works quite well with how Braum's kit works around, I guess, your allies in a way. You raise your guard when next to an allied champion. If your ally takes damage from a champion, monster, or turret, both of you receive a shield. So with the stand behind me, the second ability, you can dash to allied champions, which means that you can dash forward maybe to the front line, and you can use the Protector's Vow passive if you take damage to grant you and your ally that little bit of extra shield. That could be quite, it could come quite in handy, especially during the team fights. Force of Nature, maximum health, magic resist, movement speed. This is basically the magic resist version of Dead Man's Plate. Take ability damage grants you movement speed and magic resistance. So just stacking more movement speed and more magic resistance, which both work quite well with Braum. And if a lost item, Randuin's Omen, which allows you to reduce the damage of crits being taken, and you can reduce the attack speed of enemies by 15% when struck by an attack. But to be honest, the last two items, I think the first 3 or 4 items, including the boots, it is completely fine. But to be honest, the last 2 items can be swapped up for a load of different things. If the enemy team has a lot of healing, then Thornmail is a great option. If you want to go for Warmogs, you can go for that. If your team has a lot of AP damage, you can also go for Abyssal Mask. So any tank items in general, you just need to kind of see what the enemy team is building and see what damage sources the enemy team has, and then work your build around that, basically. For the runes, Font of Life, even though it's got nerfed quite a lot recently, it's still the go-to rune for Braum. You can't really go for any other rune with Braum at the moment. There's not really anything else that you can really, help with. Aftershock is not that great because your passive takes so long to proc, and relying on your ultimate just to proc Aftershock is quite difficult. And like I said, no other rune really helps you, so Font of Life is kind of the only rune for Braum. But it does work really well with Braum, because when you use your Q, you will slow the enemies, and when you use your passive and other abilities as well, then your ally can walk up, if it's a Lucian for example, auto attack, and they can heal and deal a little bit more damage as well, which is quite nice. Weakness, as mentioned already, Braum has a lot of crowd control, so when you land any of this crowd control, it allows you and your teammates to deal an extra bit of damage. Hunter Titan gives you a little bit of maximum health in the early game, also grants you maximum health and tenacity every time you get a unique takedown, which tenacity works quite well with Braum because sometimes you can get crowd controlled quite a lot yourself, which means you can't walk up, you can't use your abilities, and you can't help out your team. And then for last rune, Pathfinder allows you to roam around the map a lot quicker. At the moment, supports love roaming around the map. They like making plays around the map. With Braum, he's not the best at roaming, but you can try and make plays. You can try and jump to minions in a lane, use your ultimate, use your other abilities, and it can work like that. Then for some of the spells, we have flash. Obviously, you got flash combos, which I'll explain a little bit later on. And then you have heal. You can go for something more aggressive like ignite or exhaust. But I feel like heal is the best option because you're always going to be near your allies, or you're always going to be near your dual lane carry. So having a heal available to you just allows you to keep yourself and your team alive. So that's everything. That's just a quick rundown of the items, runes, and spells. Let's head on to the abilities. Starting off with Braum's passive, let's take a look at concussive blows. Braum's attacks apply concussive blows for a few seconds, and once the first stack is applied, allied champions' attacks also stack concussive blows. Upon reaching 4 stacks, the enemy is stunned for just under 2 seconds and also takes magic damage. Enemies cannot receive stacks for a few seconds after being stunned, but can take additional magic damage from Braum's attacks. Now you can see how many stacks you have of concussive blows just underneath the enemy. So if I attack this target dummy, for example, you can see the concussive blows is a little kind of helmet horn thing at the bottom. And once you get 4 stacks, you can use this by using your auto attacks and also using your first ability. There you go. You can see that the enemy is stunned. And you see that little ring that's going around as well. That's the amount of time you have until that champion can then stack another part of concussive blows. So you can use your auto attacks. You can also use your first ability, but your ultimate does not count towards concussive blows, so just bear that in mind. So all you have to do is use your Q and use your auto attacks to stack concussive blows. And as it mentioned, you know, if your allies are there as well, they can also walk up and use concussive blows as all their auto attacks to stack concussive blows. That's why Lucian and Braum is a really good combo, because Lucian can use his double up from his passive to be able to stack concussive blows a lot quicker. Also, with your passive, you can actually stack this up to multiple enemies at the same time. So say if I got these 2 target dummies and I want to, you know, proc them both with my passive, I can do that if I want to. So you can see one passive is there and the other passive is there, which makes this really important during team fights with Braum. So when you're walking around, even though you want to protect your team and be at the front line, sometimes it's nice to walk around and just do one auto attack to each enemy so your allies can carry on and you know, stack the concussive blows, which means you can stun multiple enemies during the entire team fight. Moving on to that first ability, we have Winter's Bite, which launches ice that deals magic damage and slows the enemy hit by 70% for a few seconds. And it also, as it's mentioned there, applies a stack of concussive blows. So you can use the first ability. This is normally really good during the laning phase. You can use this and maybe go into bushes, try and use this ability. You can use this as a sort of poking tool. As you can see, the range is quite long as well. But if you ever want to get into a situation where you want to extend the range of your first ability, you can actually combo your first ability and use flash straight afterwards. So as you can see, I'm not in range of the target dummy, but if I use my flash straight afterwards, then I can get into range. It's a really nice combo and it can catch a lot of people off guard. You can then use this on top of your ultimate straight afterwards to slow the enemies and knock them up as well, which can be really important, especially during the laning phase. You can use this combo. Moving on to Braum's second ability, we have Stand Behind Me, which Braum leaps to an ally, and Braum and the allied champion gain a bonus armor and magic resist for a few seconds on arrival. So this not only helps your team, but also helps yourself survive at the same time. So you can use this to leap forward to start a team fight, or you can leap backwards to protect yourself and also protect your dual lane carries. Now, there's one thing I want to mention with the second ability that probably most people will not know about. If I use these target dummies here, when I use my second ability, it will always put Braum where the nearest dummy is, or where the nearest enemy is, as you can see there. When I jump to an ally, even if I'm like here, for example, it will always put me on the side of between you, your ally, and the enemy, if that makes sense. So even if I stand all the way over here, it will put me to the right of the target dummy because that is the closest enemy. For the third ability, we have Unbreakable, which raises his shield, intercepting projectiles for a few seconds, and Braum negates the first instance of damage from whichever direction he faces and takes reduced damage. And the interesting part as well is that Braum also gains attack speed, movement speed, while his shield is raised. So you can use this to use your third ability during the laning phase to walk up, and then use your auto attacks and your first ability to, you know, reduce the distance between you and the enemy. As mentioned, if you're away from any enemies at all, it depends on the way you're moving. So if I move to left here, my shield will go to the left. If I move to the right, the shield will go to the right. So it will depend on the way that you're moving. However, if you're near an enemy champion, so say if I use my second ability and then my third ability, if I tap it, the shield will always jump up, or the shield will always block between your ally and the enemy target. So if I stand here as well, and if the target dummy is there, if I press it, it will always go towards that dummy. And even if I move away as well, it will always put up a shield in that direction. So that's something to bear in mind as well, is that when you're near an enemy target, all you have to do is press it. You don't have to bother about holding the ability or using it in a certain direction. If you know that the enemy is coming from a certain direction, you see that enemy, you can just press it and it will come up straight away. So as mentioned, you can use this in combination with your second ability, which allows you to jump to minions as well. You can jump to minions and other things as well with your second ability. So if you use your second ability and then your third ability afterwards, you gain that little bit of extra movement speed, which allows you to walk up, use your first ability and use your ultimate as well, which can become a really, really nice combo. And for the ultimate, we have Glacial Fissure, which slams the ground and opens a fissure, dealing magic damage and knocking up enemies for just under 2 seconds. The fissure slows enemies by 60% and lasts for about 4 seconds. And after a first enemy is hit, subsequent enemies are knocked up for just under a second. So it's really nice if you can land it on the first enemy and land on multiple enemies as well. As you can see here, if I use the ultimate here, the first enemy will be knocked up quite a lot, but the enemy behind that won't be knocked up as much. But if you can land multiple people at the same time, they'll still be slowed, which is really, really important to know. You can also use your ultimate as well to help you set up your concussive blows, your passive. So if I use my second ability and my ultimate, by the time I use my first ability and my other auto attacks, you can see that the ultimate will expire. So most of the time, the enemies are going to be slowed with your ultimate, so you can walk up and you can use your passive to auto attack as much as possible. So take a look at the skill order for Braum. At level 1, you want to go for your first ability. This just allows you to deal a little bit of poke damage early on if you want to. And then for level 2, you can decide between the two. You can go for your second ability if you want to play more aggressive. Maybe you can jump to minions. Or if you get a lot of poke damage, I would highly recommend going for your third ability. This means that you can get that damage reduction early on in the early game, and you can get the extra movement speed as well, so you can walk up to the enemies and try and land your first ability, and also land your auto attacks as well, so you get early passive proc. Then you want to go for your other ability, your second or your third ability, whatever one you haven't taken, and then you want to make sure that you max your first ability. This will just lower the cooldown, that this is kind of Braum's main ability in a way, because it does a lot of damage and the slow is quite important at the same time. And then after that, you want to max your third ability. So your third ability, when you level up, it lowers the cooldown and it also increases the damage reduction that Braum will take. So increasing that damage reduction can be very, very important, especially during team fights. And then you want to make sure you level up your second ability and then level up your ultimate when possible. So that's everything for a quick Braum guide. I'm going to head over to gameplay now and tell you all a few tips and tricks about Braum as the gameplay goes on. So hopefully you stay tuned and I'll see you all in just a second. All right, on to the gameplay with the big man himself, Braum. Braum's a very interesting champion. I feel like, I mean, we're going to be playing Braum Lucian, which is, in my opinion, the strongest combo with Braum, because of the passive, as I mentioned already, with Lucian. So when you land your first ability or when you land an auto attack, Lucian can then dash forward, usually double auto attacks from the passive to proc the concussive blows passive as quick as possible, so you can land a stun, you can deal more damage as well, which could be really, really nice and very, very important as well, especially in the laning phase. I could have used my my Q here to poke a little bit early on, but I didn't for some reason. I have no idea why. But with Braum, so we're against Thresh, and as you can see, I've got my my first ability at level 1, so I'm going to be looking to walk up as much as possible and use my first ability to try and poke down, as you can see, poke down the enemy as much as possible. Unfortunately, my Lucian gets a little bit caught out here, and unfortunately dies at level 1. I tried to stack my passive as quick as possible, but that's kind of the problem with MF in the early game, is that actually Braum is like one of the best champions against Misfortune, because you can block so much. You can block the first ability, you can block the ultimate, you can block, you know, quite a lot from Misfortune. But obviously, because I only had my first ability and I was only level 1, then I couldn't really do too much. So I'm just going to be trying to delay this lane as much as possible and stop the wave from pushing, so my ADC can come back and take the minions, which, as you can see, that is what my my Lucian is doing. Taking a little bit of damage again, which can be a little bit of a struggle. But it's all good. It's all good. You can see that Misfortune's poke damage early on can be a little bit annoying, to be fair, but it's still all good. But yeah, I mean, with Braum, his lane phase is not really the best. He struggles a lot against a lot of enchanters. So like Soraka, for example. Lulu can be a bit of a struggle. Nami as well is another big struggle. I think I just said Nami twice there. But anyway, yeah, it can be a little bit of a struggle because obviously Braum is just melee and you don't really have any ranged abilities except for your first ability. So if an enchanter walks up to you, like a Nami for example, you need to try and land your first ability and try and, well, hope for your ADC to follow up, or hope for your dual lane carry to follow up, so you can deal a lot of damage to the enchanters, because they're very, very squishy. You can try and use your passive to try and help out. You can see here that I'm just trying to delay the push at the moment, because we're in a bit of a tough situation. It was a bit of a unfortunate early game, to be fair, because the Thresh landed a flay onto my ADC at level 1. We're just going to stay here for now. We're going to try and stop the tower dive, which looks like it's coming in very, very soon. You can see that I am very, very low on health, but I have my my heal, which I think is the most important thing. As you can see here, I use my heal to stop the Misfortune damage from coming in. I couldn't use my third ability in time. You can see we're going to bait the Sweet Tooth out as well. I'm going to use my third ability to block the auto attacks from Misfortune and block the damage. As you can see, they're both so low, and as you can see, my Lucian is able to jump forward, use the ultimate, and get a nice and easy double kill. So a little bit of overextension by the enemy dual lane, but you can see there how your third ability and how the damage reduction can definitely help out a lot, and going for heal as well actually helped me, which was quite nice. And then after that, I got the heal from Font of Life, because the great thing with Font of Life is that all you need to do is land your first ability, and as soon as you land your first ability, then your ally can walk up and use an auto attack to proc the passive, which is or not proc the passive, but proc the Font of Life passive, I should say, so you can get the extra healing. That's quite nice. It was a really good early game from ourselves. We did quite well to protect Lucian as much as possible, but also get a nice easy double kill as well. You can see that I'm going Redemption as a first item. This mainly happens all the time with supports, is that you normally go for your boots upgrade as the first item, just because of the extra movement speed the boots give you, and also how powerful the passives can be as well, because you're not going to get a lot of gold to try to get an item before the first dragon. The cheapest option is going for the boots upgrade, which only costs, what, 1,500 gold. Most of the time in the early game, I like to start with Ruby Crystal, because you get that little bit of extra tankiness. Some people start boots in the early game, but I don't feel like it's very important. You can see here, I'm using my ultimate, I'm using everything that I can, and the dragon was stolen, which is quite nice. You can see here, I've got the passive on the Shyvana, so I'm able to get a nice quick kill off there. Get the kill, secure onto Orianna, as you call it, as a support. And I think the Misfortune is going to die here as well, and my Lucian gets a triple kill. So another really good start there. You can see what I did was I was able to rotate around the dragon and help out my Jax, who got hooked. And as you can see, when you use the stand behind me, the second ability, as I explained during the ability section, every time you use your second ability, it will always put you between your ally and the enemies. So all you need to do is use your second ability, press the ability, and then press third ability straight afterwards, and it will always block the attacks from the enemy. So I was able to block a lot. I used my ultimate, which I don't think was in the best position, but I just tried to do it to try and help out the Pantheon who was jumping in. And then afterwards, Shyvana tried to jump in, but I was able to auto-attack and use my passive on Shyvana and multiple other enemies to get a very, very good team fight. Use Redemption there as well to get quite a lot of healing and also damage as well, because Redemption does deal a little bit of damage. Not too much, but it does deal a little bit of damage, to be fair. You can see Thresh is walking up very, very far forward here. You missed my first ability, unfortunately, because of the Thresh hook, but I wasn't able to use my other abilities as well. See, I'm using Stand behind me. I'm using my other abilities to try and help out the Lucian. Trying to proc my passive as well. You can see I'm just using my auto attack, and I step to the side to dodge the Misfortune ultimate, and there we go, another easy double kill. So you can see that I'm just walking in and out of fights and using my passive when I can. So walking out, dashing back in with my second ability, using my Q to proc the passive onto Thresh so he can get stunned. Unfortunately, I didn't have my shield available for the Misfortune ultimate. If I did, then I probably would have just walked forward and used my first ability. But you can see how I just moved to the side, so I wasn't going to get hit by Misfortune's ultimate, which I thought was quite nice. We got Dead Man's Plate as our first item. We're against a lot of AD champions as well, so Dead Man's Plate is really, really good. And you can see as you roam around the map as well, you get a lot of movement speed with Braum. And you can see we're going to use this movement speed now to try and move up to the top side of the map to try and help out with this Rift Herald. You can see I'm using my ultimate on Orianna and use all my other abilities as well. And you can see if you catch enemies off guard, they're basically going to be completely stuck in place. And there's nothing really you can do because you have to knock up from your ultimate. You have your slow from your first ability. And then you also have your passive on top of that as well. So when you use that in combination with Lucian, it can be really, really nice. We're going to roam down, back down to the Dura lane now to maybe catch out this Misfortune, which I don't think we'll be able to do. But still, the rotations are there, as you can see, and the movement speed is there for Braum. My Lucian used ultimate to try and, I think, cancel the back of Misfortune, but she wasn't there, unfortunately. But you can see here that I'm using my first ability as a slow and use my third ability to get that extra bit of movement speed. As you can see, I flash forward, I use my other abilities, and that's another way you can catch out enemies. Catch out enemies. You can see that you can use your first ability to slow the enemies. Use that movement speed from the third ability to catch up as well on top. So not only you slowing the enemies with your first ability, but you also gaining movement speed yourself from the third ability, which can be quite nice. And then use your flash. Use your flash. You know what I mean. Use your flash on top of that with the other abilities to catch up. And when you're against an immobile carry like Misfortune, it makes it a lot easier as well, which is why sometimes on AD carries you want to go for Protobelt, because Protobelt is a great rune to kind of keep your distance between you and a champion like Braum so he doesn't proc his passive. So, we're 8 minutes into the game at the moment. We're quite far ahead, 16 kills to 6, but I'm going to try and explain all my decision-making as much as I can and little tips that I can offer. At the moment, the dragon is spawning. You can see that I can jump to allies over walls as well if I want to. My ultimate here is a little bit too early, if I'm totally honest. I'm not able to help my Lucian as much as I wanted to, but he's able to use the culling and get the kill anyway. So I used my ultimate a little bit too early there. I thought the rest of the team was there to back me up, but unfortunately they weren't. But you can see how I used my Q afterwards with jumping to Lucian at the same time to give him the extra armor magic resist so he can survive and we get to secure the second dragon of the game. I think the audio might be a little bit too low actually, thinking about it. There you go. It should be a little bit better now. Sorry if the in-game audio was a little bit low, but I could hear it well, but I don't think you guys could hear it that well, but it's all good. So my Lucian is currently 9-1. I'm 2-0-9. I don't want to spoil anything, but I'm pretty sure I don't die once this game. So you can call it a flawless Braum game. I'll be seeing the comments. I saw a lot of you actually do the put the question mark comment in the previous video when I said like, oh, if you watch up until this point, put a F. No, it wasn't a question mark. It was F, wasn't it? I put an F in chat. That was it. There's quite a lot of you that actually watched up to that point, so I appreciate all the support and everything that you give to me and show me during, especially these guides as well, because these guides obviously a little bit different to something I'm used to. You can see here that unfortunately my team got a little bit caught out and I wasn't able to do that much, and yeah, we do take a really, really bad trade, but unfortunately there wasn't anything that I could have done really to change that. Excuse me, because Misfortune dashed forward. And also, not Misfortune, Fiora dash forward and then Pantheon dash forward afterwards. So sometimes in that situation, it's a little bit difficult. We unfortunately lost the tower. I was trying to cancel the back of Misfortune, trying to 1v1 her, but she went back in time. But yeah, like I said, I mean, I appreciate all the support that you all give to me. Like I said, these guys are a little bit different than what maybe you're used to, but I do have a lot of, I guess you could say, experience with all of these champions because of PC League of Legends. I do have, you know, I have played support before. I've played other roles. I've played all of these champions pretty much now on Wild Rift. Even though I'm an AD carry main, I like to be sometimes a bit more open, a bit more, I guess, versatile, I guess you can say in a way, with all my champion builds. You can see here that I'm using my third ability, using my ultimate to knock up afterwards. It lands on the Orianna afterwards, and we got a nice and easy double kill. Using my redemption as well to get a little bit of extra healing to help out my Lucian. Use my Q and everything else, and there we go. I mean, at this point in the game, when Lucian's this far ahead, in combination with Braum as well, you could do so much damage, especially with concussive blows. And even though I didn't talk too much about, like, counters and synergies, I kind of spoke about it a little bit during the, obviously during this gameplay. But yeah, there you go. Really, really nice tower dive there onto the Braum. You can see I didn't walk away straight away because I knew that I could take, you know, a few more auto attacks from the turret. So I waited until the last second until I knew I was going to die from the last auto attack. And you can see that that's a what they call a perfect tower dive. But yeah, other good champions that work with Braum, you can play with other aggressive champions in the early game. Misfortune's quite good, especially because the combo with the ultimate. You got Draven as well, which can work quite well if you can land your first ability. But the main thing is that it's all to do with you. It's all to do with Braum, because you need to make sure you land your first ability, and then after that, your team can follow up. Another thing is that Ezreal's first ability also procs Braum's Q, which is quite nice as well. And then you have other champions as well. Like I said, you don't really want to, you can block like a lot of things as well. You can block a lot of abilities with your third ability. Misfortune Ultimate, Seraphine Ultimate, a bunch of other abilities as well, which can be very, very impactful. So most of the time you don't want to pick Braum early on. So say your first pick, for example, I wouldn't really recommend picking Braum because you can get countered quite easily by an enchanter. You can struggle a lot in the laning phase. But if your last pick, for example, and say you're against like, I don't know, Seraphine, Misfortune, you know, loads of champions that have all of these abilities and all of these combos. Even Zed as well. Zed is quite good to play Braum into. Sorry, Braum is really good to play into Zed because you can block a lot of his combos and his abilities. But yeah, moving on to the game anyway, moving back to the game, you can see that I am currently looking to try and get an engage off here. I use my ultimate. I knock up Orianna into the backline. I also use my passive as well. And you can see the Zeke's passive, the circle that's around me. This will allow me to slow enemies as well. So when I use ultimate, the knock up from the ultimate, when I use my Q on top of that as well, I'll be able to do quite a lot. I'll be able to not only knock up enemies, but also slow them from the Zeeks and also the first ability. So we're trying to get the mid lane tower here. As mentioned, Lucian's really fed at this point, so there's not really anything that the enemy team can do. We got so far ahead in the laning phase in that 2 versus 2. And I think Lucian Braum is probably, you know, one of the best 2v2s in the game at the moment, just because of how both their passives work together. Gonna go back to base now. Gonna go for the Protector's Vow. So this is the same build as what I mentioned in the build section. But like I said, this build can vary. If you're against a lot of healing, for example, you can go for Thornmail early on, or you can build just Bramble Vest. So you can, you know, when champions hit you, they get inflicted with grievous wounds. So they take reduced healing. If you're against more magic damage, then you can go for something like Force of Nature as the third item, or even Abyssal Mask if you have a lot of AP damage on your team. Again, the build is very, very flexible. I think every single build of every champion is very flexible. You need to make sure that you have a look at the situation of the game and have a look at how much gold you have as well at the same time, and make sure that you do the best for your team and you try and be that frontline tank. Because if you just keep going for the same build over and over again, you might have like, you might be against a lot of AP damage, for example, but then you're building like Protector's Vow, Thornmail, Dead Man's Plate, you know, all these armor items, which technically are completely useless against a full AP team. Even though they might auto attack a few times, you want a lot of magic resistance against AP teams. So make sure you keep bear that in mind when building champions. You need to make sure that you have all of that, all of them abilities and everything up and available. You can see here that we're going to catch out Shyvana here. We're going to use our Q, use our passive and everything else. I use the ultimate afterwards as well to go onto the Orianna. I'm trying to protect my Lucian as much as possible. I didn't do too well though, to be fair. I walked up a little bit too far, if I'm totally honest. I could have used my shield to actually block the Misfortune ultimate and focus the Braum instead, but I kind of tunnel visioned on Orianna because I already have had passive stacks on her. So a little bit of a misplay for myself. I think if I blocked the Misfortune ultimate, I think my Lucian definitely could have survived. So yeah, a little bit of a misplay for myself. I think protecting the Lucian there was probably my my best bet, but I guess that's me not playing support too much, is that sometimes I play a little bit too over-aggressive. But you can see here what we're going to do is we're going to get our third and final inhibitor. We're going to try and kill Garen here. He tries to jump onto me, but unfortunately he can't do enough damage because I use my stand behind me, my second ability, and I use my shield as well, which means that I take reduced damage. And we're going to try and end the game, but I don't think we can. I don't think we actually end the game here, if I remember correctly. Actually, I can't even remember at all. But yeah, it doesn't look like we do end the game. So we're going to go for Force of Nature as a third item because we don't really have a lot of AP damage on the team. If any, actually. I don't think, no, we don't have any AP damage on the team. So actually, we have a full AD team. You know what? I never actually realized we had a full AD team up until this point. But you can see, like, for example, like Thresh is going for a Nekatron Cloak, a Magic Resist item, and he went for Mercury Treads as well. Which Mercury Treads is not bad against our team, but when you're against a full AD team, you should just be going full armor. You know, full armor, especially as a support as well, like Thresh, you know, Deadman's Plate, Thornmail, Randuin's Omen, reduce them crits, which is going to be very, very important. So you can see here, my Lucian's playing very aggressive. I'm going to use the stand behind me and the shield to protect the Lucian. Does really, really well to proc the passive. You can see that this works really, really well in combination with each other. Use the stand behind me again. Use the first ability as well. Use my shield so it blocks all the damage, as you can see. With that far ahead that we can basically walk into the base. There you go. Use my first ability. Proc all the healing from Lucian. And there we go. A 2 versus 5 situation to end off the game. And that's going to be the gameplay for today. Thank you all for tuning into the video. As mentioned, Braum is a very, very interesting pick, but a very, very good pick nonetheless as well. Hopefully you enjoyed the gameplay. Hopefully you enjoyed the guide. The next guide is going to be Caitlyn, which is going to be an AD carry. So hopefully you're all looking forward to that. I get to put myself back on the AD carry role. But as you can see here, as I go into the end game screen, you see 4-0-23, and then keys on Lucian is 18, 2, and 4. So pretty big 2 versus 8 game. But yeah, nonetheless, thank you very much for tuning into the video. I'll see you on the next Wilder video. Take care. I'll see you all soon. Peace.